Hello, my name is Moni from PTE Magic, and today I'm going to show you a small experiment that I did with PTE. So what I did was that I used a mock test B from PTEpractice.com, but on this occasion I only completed the speaking part. The reason being is that I wanted to test how many scores would speaking give to the listening and the reading part. So let's have a look at the results first.
Please keep in mind that I did not do listening, reading, and writing in this test, but just by getting 90 for speaking, my score for listening has increased to 46 and reading to 31.
So when I first saw that, I was really surprised, considering the fact that I have not done anything in listening and reading yet I got 46 for listening and 31 for reading. So this leads me to the point that if you're still struggling with the other two tasks while your speaking is not perfect, try to work on that first. And now I'm going to show you the recording of me doing mock test B speaking.
The course includes an extensive unit on climate change and requires all students to read the Stern Review on the Economics of Climate Change, which was published last year. The course delves into the science behind the issue, the challenges it poses to business and government, as well as a discussion on possible solutions. Delves into Stern Review, the economics of climate change. The course includes an extensive unit on climate change and requires all students to read the Stern Review on the Economics of Climate Change, which was published last year. The course delves into the science behind the issue, the challenges it poses to business and government, as well as a discussion on possible solutions. In the fast-changing world of modern healthcare, the job of a doctor is more and more like the job of a chief executive. The people who run hospitals and physicians' practices don't just need to know medicine. They must also be able to balance budgets, motivate a large and diverse staff, and make difficult marketing and legal decisions. Modern healthcare run hospitals and physicians' practices. Balance In the fast-changing world of modern healthcare, the job of a doctor is more and more like the job of a chief executive. The people who run hospitals and physicians' practices don't just need to know medicine. They must also be able to balance budgets, motivate a large and diverse staff, and make difficult marketing and legal decisions. Environmental problems caused by hard rock mining involve water pollution by metals themselves, chemicals used in processing, acid drainage, and sediment. Metals and metal-like elements in the ore are toxic and prone to cause trouble by ending up in nearby streams and water tables as a result of mining operations. Hard rock mining, metals, chemicals, acid drainage. Metals and metal-like elements the ore are toxic, prone to cause trouble, mining operations. Environmental problems caused by hard rock mining involve water pollution by metals themselves, chemicals used in processing, acid drainage, and sediment. Metals and metal-like elements in the ore are toxic and prone to cause trouble by ending up in nearby streams and water tables as a result of mining operations. In recent years, there have been one or two significant happenings that have kept alive the hope that the deep sea may conceal strange links with the past. In December 1938, off the southeast tip of Africa, an amazing fish was caught alive. A fish that was supposed to have been dead for at least 60 million years. Million years. Southeast tip of Africa. In recent years, there have been one or two significant happenings that have kept alive the hope that the deep sea may conceal strange links with the past. In December 1938, off the southeast tip of Africa, an amazing fish was caught alive. A fish was supposed to have been dead for at least 60 million years. In multilingual countries, code mixing the use of more than one variety in the same utterance or sentence, and code switching, the use of different languages or varieties between sentences is common and natural. Okay. Despite its frequency, or perhaps because of it, some scholars and self-appointed guardians of linguistic morality view both code mixing and code switching. Sorry. Okay. And code switching as a sign of linguist. In multilingual countries, code mixing the use of more than one variety in the same utterance or sentence, and code switching the use of different languages or varieties between sentences is common and natural. Despite its frequency, or perhaps because of it, some scholars and self-appointed guardians of linguistic morality view both code mixing and code switching as a sign of linguistic deficiency. Okay. In this landmark account, first published over 20 years ago, the author argues that the ignorance and lethargy of the poor are the direct result of the whole situation of economic, social, and political domination. By being kept in a situation in which critical awareness and response are practical impossible, the disadvantaged are kept submerged. Submerged. Disadvantaged are kept submerged. Landmark account. In this landmark account, first published over 20 years ago, the author argues that the ignorance and lethargy of the poor are the direct result of the whole situation of economic, social, and political domination. By being kept in a situation in which critical awareness and response are practically impossible, the disadvantaged are kept submerged.
Students must observe lab safety regulations at all times.
Students must observe lab safety regulation at all times.
It's the words of common occurrence that have different referential value.
It's the words of common occurrence that have different referential value.
The office said Dr. Smith will arrive later today.
The office said Dr. Smith will arrive later today.
Student Services provides help with housing and transport.
Student Services provides help with housing and transport.
A study skills seminar is on for students who require assistance.
A study skills seminar is on for students who require assistance.
Any textual references you make should be cited appropriately in the footnotes.
Any textual reference you make should be cited appropriately in the footnote.
The research paper should begin with a thorough review of the literature.
The research paper should begin with thorough review of the literature.
The aesthetic implications of this study have not yet been fully explored.
The aesthetic implications of this study have not yet been fully explored.
The inherent tension between these two features remains to be addressed.
The inherent tension between these two features remains to be addressed.
Journalism is the collection and publication or transmission of news.
Journalism is the collection and publication or transmission of news. Okay, describe image, largest city worldwide. The bar chart below shows the largest city worldwide from 1950 to 2015. As can be seen from the picture, we can see that in 1950, the largest city was New York with 21 million people. And then in 2000, it was Tokyo with 23 million people. And in 2015, the largest city was Tokyo with 36 million people. On the other hand, the smallest city in 2015 was Delhi with 12 million people. And also in 1950, it was London with 8 million people. In conclusion, we can see that it also shows other information on the cities like New York, Mexico City, and Tokyo. The line chart below shows the distribution of kilocalories per day in different parts of the world. As can be seen from the picture, we can see that North America consumes the highest level of kilocalories per day, which can be seen at around 3,600 kilocalories per day in 1995. On the other hand, Africa consumes the least kilocalories per day, which we can see at only 2,400 kilocalories per day in 1995. We can also see that the number of kilocalories increased significantly from 1975 to 1995. In conclusion, it shows interesting information. The pie chart below shows the injury location. As can be seen from the graph, we can see that the majority of injuries are happening at home with 41.4%, followed by roads 19.5%, leisure sports 17.1%, work 15.2%, and only 4.8% of injuries are occurring at school or childcare, and also other locations accounts for 2% exactly. So in conclusion, the pie chart showing the distribution of interest based on different locations and different figures. The line graph below shows the population growth and projected population of Sydney from 1976 to 2031. As can be seen from the graph, we can see that in 1976 census, the population was 3,050,000 people. And then in 2001 census, this number increased sharply to 4,128,570 people. And then it is projected that by 2031, the population will go up to 5,300,000 people. So in conclusion, they projected that the population will continue to rise in the future. The picture below shows the comparison between three different buildings across different part of the world. And as can be seen from the picture, we can see that the lowest tower is Sears Tower, Chicago, which can be seen at 1,450 feet, followed by Petronas Towers 1 and 2 in Kuala Lumpur, which can be seen at 1,483 feet. And then the tallest building is in Taipei 101 in Taipei, which we can see at 1,670 feet. So in conclusion, we can see that both of these towers are located in Asia, and only Sears Tower Chicago is in America. The line graph below shows the manufacturing output in the UK. As can be seen from the picture, we can see that the graph fluctuated across the period of 1999 to 2007. We can see that it started at 100% in manufacturing output in 1999, and then this number fluctuated and dropped to 96% in 2003 before increasing again and fluctuated to reach the final point of 102% in 2007. So in conclusion, we can see that there was different trends in manufacturing output in the United Kingdom.
Milk is not typical of all monasteries for many reasons. First, it is very grand, which most, especially later foundations, aren't. Secondly, it was founded in the countryside, whereas in the 17th and 18th centuries, a good proportion of foundations were made in towns. Thirdly, it still owns a substantial amount of land, because fourthly, it lies in the Austrian Republic, the only European country where grand old monasteries have been in continuous existence since they were founded, 900, 1,000, even in one case 1,200 years ago.
The lecture is about Molk Monastery in Austria. It was said that it is not a typical monastery for many reasons, because firstly, it is very grand, which most and later foundations are not, and second, it was founded in countryside, and in 17th and 18th centuries, most of the foundations were made in town, and thirdly, it still owns substantial amount of land, and finally, it lies in the Austrian Republic, which is the only European country where the old monasteries have been in continuous existence since they were founded 900, 1000, and even 1200 years ago.
Corruption comes at a huge economic and social cost, and that cost is felt most acutely by the world's poor. Dr. Arnold has already given the staggering figure of $1 trillion US that's paid in bribes worldwide. It is an extraordinary figure. It's a figure that equals 10 times what is paid each year by donors in international development assistance. 10 times development assistance. And even this huge amount, $1 trillion, could be an underestimate, because it's very difficult to capture a number of the more elusive transactions within the public sector that involve corrupt dealings, such as budget leakages and asset theft. Corruption sharpens income inequality and it impacts disproportionately on the poor. In many countries, corruption works as a regressive tax on household incomes. Regressive because it impacts much more on the poor than the more wealthy. Compared with higher income groups, lower income families pay a much larger share of their incomes in bribes to access basic public services, and their overall access to those services is reduced.
The lecture talks about significant corruption, which comes at huge economic and social cost, and those costs are the most serious by the world's poor. It was also mentioned about $1 trillion US that has been paid in bribes worldwide, and it's equal 10 times what is paid each year by donors in international development assistance. And it also mentioned about the elusive transaction within the public sector that involved corrupt dealing with, such as budget leakages and asset theft. And finally, it mentioned about the disproportionate distribution of the in regressive tax.
This is Hans Krebs, who in 1937 published a paper showing the sequence of chemical reactions by which energy is released in individual cells. It's called the Krebs cycle, which some of you may remember from your chemistry course in high school. Krebs is a wonderful example to me of how a scientist who is determined can overcome all kinds of human obstacles. Krebs' father constantly discouraged him and told him that he had just mediocre intelligence and would never do anything important in his life as a teenager. What Krebs remembers in his memoir, his father said to him, "You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear." And later on, when Krebs studied with the great biochemist Otto Warburg, Warburg also told him the same thing, not the same quote, but that he had only mediocre ability and would never be a great scientist. And we all hear about how important it is for parents to encourage their children, but sometimes the children will go on to do great things no matter what we say to them.
The lecture is about Hans Krebs, who published a paper showing the sequence of chemical reactions by which energy is released in individual cells, which is called Krebs cycle in 1938. It was said that he was a scientist who is determined to overcome all kinds of obstacles, but his father constantly discouraged him and said that he couldn't do anything as a teenager. And later, when he worked with biochemist Otto Warburg, he was told the same, that he was mediocre. So it is very important for parents to encourage their children, and sometimes children can do great things no matter what they say.
To which of our senses do all of the following words relate? Opaque, vivid, brilliant, shiny.
Vision, vision.
In a recession, does economic activity increase, slow down, or stay the same?
Slow down.
In medical terms, are antibodies harmful or beneficial for patients?
Beneficial.
Would a person suffering problems with their vision consult a biologist or an optometrist?
Optometrist.
Would fresh milk last longer in a fridge or in a cool cupboard?
In a fridge.
Historians use evidence to draw conclusions about the past. Would a contemporary artist's painting of an ancient battle be an original source or a secondary source?
Original source. Secondary source.
What is the subject of study at a culinary institute?
Cooking, culinary.
Where would you expect to find equipment like microscopes, Bunsen burners, beakers, and petri dishes?
In the lab, laboratory.
What is the name of the field of study that studies the human mind and behavior?
Psychology.
A planet or galaxy that is very distant can be seen with what device?
Telescope.
So I'm pretty sure you noticed that I did make a small mistake in repeat sentence and also my fluency in describe image and retell lecture were not as good as I wanted them to be, but eventually I still managed to get 90. So it's okay to make minor mistakes. It doesn't mean that you'll fail your speaking. So just keep calm and do your best during the test. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like that. And until next time.